There, I was asked to resubmit just to really show my user research initially and also to talk about the usability testing. For my user research, I actually interviewed 3 people. It just probably wasn't obvious in my initial submission. And I observed them actually using the Connective app. So I had a prepared questionnaire, and I'll just quickly show you what that looked like. Here we go. So I had different types of questions in the questionnaire. You can see some of the different styles here, and that's actually the second page, sorry. But on that second page, you can see that at the end there's also an area where I asked for suggestions. Now, once I had my 3 people do this research questionnaire, I had also made my own notes because remember I'm observing them using the app, and the kind of things I observed, some of them they hadn't talked about or answered, but they were things like it was taking them very long to find what they wanted to find, or they weren't finding it all, they were getting frustrated, and then it would give me areas to drill down on, and that would add more post-it notes. So I ended up with a lot of post-it notes, and I decided there were really 3 key areas that I had wanted to benchmark against in my initial research, and then later on when I did my second round of research and testing, usability testing. So I ended up with a lot of post-it notes. They're not all here. What you're looking at here is once I had synthesized the post-it notes under the 3 areas that I wanted to examine, which were the attitudes and behaviors, the usability of the Connective app, and any suggestions they had. So these post-it notes that have made it into this synthesis are the post-it notes where I've had similar comments from 2 or more of the 3 participants. If I only had one person making a comment and no other person backing that up with a similar comment, you won't see it on this page. I've considered it to be not a common need or a common theme. So the kind of things that have come out of here are the insight that the volunteering is socially motivated. It's both socially motivating and socially demotivating. So it's important to potential volunteers to see who else is motivating. It might actually encourage them to volunteer, and it might encourage them to ask someone else to volunteer as well. So one of the recommendations that came out from that is how can we really take advantage of this social side of volunteering. So you can see that here. We want to know who's volunteering, and it won't stop me, but it might encourage me. So this is definitely one of the insights that I carried forward. And another issue was time management. So people are spending a lot of time looking for what they're trying to find in the app. They're not finding it. They're busy. My persona showed that these people are really time poor, and they're usually juggling lots of different school apps. They get confused about where things are kept. In this case, there's also a functionality issue with the app. Some people want the information at the last minute because they don't know till the day before if they can volunteer. Some people want it like months before. So we know that there is definitely a time issue. And here you see one of the common things was, look, please remind me, we're busy, we can't remember we're meant to be there, and the app doesn't do it, so can you please do it? So that fits in with one of their suggestions, as you can imagine. They've then gone and said, look, it'd be really helpful if it's saved to my calendar. And here, please send me an update if it's been rescheduled and I need a week's notice. So this insight is there really is a time management issue here. And the recommendation is that we really explore how we can fit into the different time needs of our users, those needing information earlier, those needing it last minute. You know, how can we send them push information to remind them that the event's tomorrow. So really explore how we can do that when we move to the next stage. So under usability of the Connective app, what became really common feedback were things like don't take us outside the app. The app is currently linking outside to like Sign Up Genius or Google Sheets, and that's a barrier. People did not want to be taken outside the app. Some people absolutely do not want a Google account, and they won't volunteer if you ask them to. So this came through as a common theme. It's on this page because several people had asked for it. I've put it under the usability of the app. There's also an issue where people are not familiar with the app, and I think it appeared to be also because the app is not completing a full process. It's sending you the information and then it's taking you outside of the app to a link to some other document. So you can't then easily come back and you can't view where your information is. And then we observe, and this 3 people out of 3, 100% of people said they were having to save the information manually in their calendar. So the app doesn't help them to do it. And that's something which obviously we wanted to then explore. How can we help them? That's a recommendation going forward. Also, they say, I can't find what I volunteered for. So there is this issue about going back to saved information. The insight is that they don't know how to get there. Not only are they not familiar, but the app is not actually allowing them to do it. So the recommendation is we try and make this a short, easy process all within the app. So after I had done that, I then went on to my low fidelity prototype, which you saw in the original presentation, and I had a different 3 people had a look at that. I did get a lot of positive feedback. You see these 3 areas that I had decided to really structure my initial research under these 3 topics: attitudes and behaviour, usability and suggestions. I, again, actually structured my second lot of research, which is the user testing of the low fidelity user flow. So I had my very rough line, drawing line flow, which you saw in the presentation. And I'm benchmarking against those 3 topics: attitudes and behaviours, usability, ideas and suggestions. The things that came through, you can see down the bottom here. So the insight, when I looked at what people thought of that really basic low fidelity user flow, was generally positive. They thought it looked like it would be a lot quicker, easier to navigate. Now, there was, because people really loved, in the initial post-it note research, people were really inspired by being able to see who else was volunteering. So they were socially motivated. And that got included into the low fidelity user flow that I'm testing here. So when they're looking at it here, they're asking how much information is going to be there when they hover, because they don't want to have their phone number and their email address there. So the common feedback I got here, all people were just interested in having their names. So I've written the overwhelming consensus is that volunteering is social and seeing who's volunteering is good. So going forward, the iteration there, the important thing we learned is just don't put in all of that detail. Just the name is enough, okay? And you can see it up here where everybody has commented on that. There was a little bit of, I guess, information came through that I wasn't expecting because I wasn't necessarily asking about it, but it started getting volunteered. I guess showing people a user flow triggered them wanting to go even further. So they're sort of starting to design it, because we had people saying maybe you could have a symbol, or maybe you could talk about the skills required. So there's obviously a need to be very clear about the level of skill that's required. I guess if we explored that further, that may come to be that some people aren't as confident with others. They're worried that maybe they won't know how to deliver on what's being asked of them. But interestingly, that came out at this point. It didn't come out at the post-it note initial research point. Usability, people basically felt it was easier. A couple of things came out which were important to iterate on. The insight was, look, the process seems effective, but there is some concern that while details are saved to the calendar, we cannot revisit the original page with the volunteer opportunities and cannot cancel or reschedule. So we've still got a navigational issue which needs to be further refined. So the iteration going forward is to make sure that they can revisit the original page after it has saved to the calendar. Don't leave them stuck in the calendar. And you see on my final mid-fidelity prototype, that's solved by the introduction of a icon, V for volunteering, from on the home page of the app. So at any point, if you want to go and view your volunteering, you are able to navigate through to what you have signed up for in the volunteering within the app. You can go in there and then you can alter it, or you can remove it, or you can go in there to see what time it is and the details. Because here again, under usability, you can see they're also saying again, how do I go back to the page prior after I look at who's volunteering? So that really brought on, under usability, the iteration that we needed to be having a back button. Sounds very simple, but it had been missed, so that they can navigate back to the prior page. And they've got the V button on the home page, which is perhaps the biggest addition of all, and it did come out of this iteration, which really came to a head in that low fidelity prototype. Ideas and suggestions. One of the ones here is when an event's cancelled, the questions raised about, well, how are they going to let us know? And one of the things that I had as a recommendation is that you have a look at how that's going to work. At the end of the day, that would now come through as a new news feed on the app that it's been cancelled. I probably need to get more tech advice as to how feasible it would be within their own volunteering page to, put an announcement. When I prioritised this, the two areas that I really had a lot of information about was, the user and the business, but not so much the tech side of it, which is the feasibility. So I think that's basically everything. And, I hope that clarifies how I synthesized this last lot. Once again, it is just what you're looking at here. They are the common comments. The common themes are posted here. I haven't posted everything. It's just where I've had 2 or more comments which are common themes. And it was the same with that original post-it notes here, synthesis. That also didn't include you're not looking at all the post-it notes. You're just looking at once it's been synthesized, and we're picking out those themes where there's 2 or more comments that are similar. So I hope that really helps, and I do believe I've covered it all, but hopefully my communication is clearer this time. Thank you.